Hitting the practice field for the first time is Seahawks, an incoming 2025 draft class, along with undrafted free agents and tryout players, hit the field for minicamp this weekend. How did things shake out and who stood out at the VMAC? Going to be breaking it all down here on this bonus edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s listening in on this Sunday afternoon, whether you're in nearby Everett, Washington, or over in Des Moines, Iowa. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. The Seahawks wrapping up their two-day rookie mini camp on Saturday afternoon. I'm going to be taking a dive today in this bonus episode into everything that I saw and heard at the VMAC during those 2 days on and off the field. So without further ado, let's get to it. Listen, it's rookie mini camp. There's no pads. You just have helmets on. No contact is allowed. The tempo, most of the practice is borderline glorified walkthrough. So it's not like rookie mini camps are going to be telling you who's going to be making the final rosters in September. It's not telling you who's going to be a Super Bowl champion. The vast majority of the players that are on the field these 2 days won't get to wear an NFL uniform again after this. That's the reality. You have a ton of tryout players who maybe they get to play for another team in another tryout. Some of these guys get multiple tryout opportunities with different teams. But that's the dark reality here. A lot of these guys are not even going to be NFL players. They're not even going to get to training camp or OTAs even. So from that perspective, it's difficult to make evaluations. And yet there's still plenty of important things that can be gleaned from these practices when you're looking at athleticism, mechanics, things of that nature. And speaking of mechanics, that's going to be the first thing we're going to dive into here because everybody's talking about Jalen Milroe, obviously the first quarterback the Seahawks have drafted since Alex Magoo back in 2018, the highest quarterback they've picked since Russell Wilson, another third rounder in 2012. There's a lot of excitement within the fan base about the potential of Jalen Milroe. And of course, we've talked about a lot in this show. There have been some issues that cropped up on film, particularly in his last year at Alabama, that are going to need to be addressed before he is going to be ready to go under center as more than a platoon quarterback that can come in and run the football for you some. He's going to have some major growth in a number of areas. One of those areas is his mechanics. And in general, if you're looking for specifics, his lower body, as he mentioned after the first practice on Friday, that's where he's really been attacking, trying to get the mechanics in his lower body fine-tuned because that has such an impact on everything else above the knees. Your footwork is crucial as a passer. It's kind of like a baseball player. Your footwork, your lower body is key with how you throw the baseball. The same goes for football. And just from day one to day two, I noticed some improvements in Jalen Milroe, and I actually asked Mike McDonald about that after yesterday's second and final minicamp practice.
One thing that you don't have a feel for Jalen, watching tape or even watching him in practice is just like the spirit he has from play to play. He's got great energy, great competitive energy about trying to get it right. Great command of the huddle. Really takes pride in the operation. And then all these fundamental things that we're going to be building on from the ground up. He's just got a great attitude about it. The coaches are doing a great job coaching him every play, and it goes for all our guys, but him especially. So, if you have that attitude, especially at the quarterback position, everybody else tends to fall in line. And in that regard, it was really, really fun to be around.
Yeah, so no specifics necessarily with the footwork there from Mike McDonald, but he's been paying attention to the spirit and the competitiveness that Jalen Milroe has addressing these deficiencies in his game. And just from Friday to Saturday, this is one of the things that really jumped out to me watching minicamp practice yesterday. You're already seeing some subtle growth with the footwork, at least compared to the tape that I've seen from the Senior Bowl, where you had way too many times where, especially in short and intermediate throws, that Jalen Milroe, his base was the big issue. Too narrow of a base, and you didn't see him driving off the back foot to really fire the football, and this led to a lot of errant passes. His accuracy was really a problem down in Mobile. And even on Friday, there were some passes where you could tell, particularly on the short, quick passes. I don't know if it's because the quick dropbacks that his feet get rushed or whatever the case may be, but you notice it more on the short to intermediate throws, and it reflects in the statistics at Alabama as well. But on Saturday, in the second session, only 2 balls hit the ground during the passing drills. One of them was a blatant drop. He was very accurate. He had only a few throws that were a little bit behind. He was hitting receivers in stride, and he was throwing with a better base, a little wider base, more consistently. There was a few times that during the scrimmage it got away from him a little bit, but he is going to have to continue to rep this. I am impressed, though, right now with what I'm seeing, at least for the last few months, where he was at the Senior Bowl. And those are things that he's going to have to continue to work diligently at so that they don't slip and regress. Because when he's got a good base underneath him and he gets drive off that back leg, he's got the arm talent to make any throw that you want. He can throw with accuracy and zip. The question's going to be, is he going to be able to get the consistency he needs in that regard? Because when that gets away from him, that's when the football gets away from him. And that's where the interceptions cropped up last year and the lower completion rate on a number of different throws. And we saw it down in Mobile as well. But you're seeing a glimpse of him already attacking that and on-field results improving from that. So I think that's an encouraging development coming out of this rookie mini camp. Let's go to the offensive line. And this is the toughest position, I'd say, offensive and defensive linemen in general. This time of year, they don't get to hit each other. There's no physicality. Trench play, we have to wait till the pads come on in August for that really to return. So it's going to be a while till we really have an idea how this trio of rookie offensive linemen will look going against NFL defensive linemen. Right now, they're just going through the motions. You're doing a lot of work on blocking sleds. But what stood out to me was the man that was coaching them, John Benton. And listen, last year, this time, we can go back and listen to Locked On Seahawks, and I talked about the fundamental approach that Scott Huff was instituting. But there were some stark differences here between John Benton and Scott Huff. Last year, it felt like Scott Huff, there was a lot of time where guys were standing around taking instruction. That is not the way that John Benton does things. He comes in, he makes his pointers like, okay, your footwork here was not correct. This is what I want. And then it's right back to the drill work. And so you didn't have as much downtime. Not saying that they didn't do things slow play at points, but it felt like there was more emphasis on the fundamentals and using the athleticism that these players have in drill work. And you can just tell the guy has been around the block a few times. 22nd year as an offensive line coach. These drills are ingrained in him. The expectations for what he wants from his players are ingrained in him. And it was just even the slightest little things that were not quite right. He was making sure to address that, whether it was Mason Richmond on Friday. A couple different times he pulled him off to the side real quick, showed him what he didn't like about the footwork or where he needed to adjust. And the players generally did a pretty good job of adjusting to that. Hand placement, all kinds of different stuff that he was working with them on. And yet it felt like they were very active in working those fundamentals in drills rather than having a lot of instructional time on the field, where it seemed like last year maybe that ended up being an issue for Scott Huff. You're seeing these guys attack these areas of technique and footwork. And so I thought it was an encouraging couple of days on that front. And just getting to see the athleticism, you can see how Gray Zabel and Bryce Cable and Mason Richmond all scored well in agility testing. Very light in their feet. They move well laterally. Those are the things you can see this time of year. And John Benton, it's obvious how much he has put into coaching offensive linemen. It just gets out of bed and he's ready to roll. This guy has been doing this for a long time. And so it was fun to watch those drills. And I'm looking forward to seeing once the pads come on, where his critiquing and his ability to coach ends up impacting the play. Not just these rookies, but the returning blockers as well. And last but not least, here on the offensive side of the ball, let's talk about Robbie Ouzts. I'm telling you, everybody was excited for the opportunity to see a fullback because it's been so long since the Seahawks had a traditional fullback on their roster. But Robbie Ouzts, he more than looks the part of an NFL fullback. Now, as he told us, this is a different world for him. And watching him in running back drills on Saturday, you could tell that it was foreign at times for him, some of the stuff that they were doing there. But Kennedy Palomalu was doing a really good job of putting him where he needed to be, breaking down what he was looking for. And Ouzts is a quick learner. You can tell that by the way that he was adapting as the drills were going on. And you can also see the tight end background. This is what I think is really intriguing here, because when you look at Robbie Ouzts at 274 pounds, you see a blocker, and that's primarily what he's going to be doing. He is going to be dishing out punishment from the backfield. He's got to work on different angles. It's a different perspective than when you're an inline blocker. So there's going to be adjustments there. But he has caught the football as a tight end. Didn't have a high volume of catches, but had 2 touchdown receptions last year. You can see that in the receiving drills with the running backs. Very natural pass catcher, turning upfield, seeing the ball and turning upfield. Very natural to him, having played the tight end position. And some guys that play the fullback spot, that isn't a natural skill for them. So they were throwing the football to him quite a bit. We'll see how that happens once we get to training camp and you have all the veterans around. But this is a kid that might end up catching a few passes out of the backfield as well. That gives you more than just being a strict blocker. And so that to me was something that was fun to watch. And just, again, the guy looks the part, and that's part of the rookie minicamp. You have to look at the players, athleticism, build, because they're not playing real football for the most part. But Robbie Ouzts, I can't wait. He might be the player I'm most excited to see the pads come out for, just to see how he performs at the fullback spot, going after linebackers, going after ends, kicking them out. I think that is going to be a lot of fun to watch when we get to the pads on in August. Coming up next, I'm going to continue my rookie minicamp takeaways. Going to be looking at how virtual reality is now infiltrating the Seahawks facility, and going to be looking at some defensive related topics and some undrafted players as well. That'll be coming up next year in this bonus edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment down to the final click feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets even when demand is sky high. Prices in the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Those last-minute deals, whether it's an NHL game, an NBA playoff game, a concert, consistently, I've been able to save 50 to 60% off buying the day before to attend those various events. And with the all-in pricing, you get no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay for, and you get to make sure you look at your views from your seat before purchasing. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account or redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the bonus edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s who are listening in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks tying up the bow on their 2-day minicamp yesterday. Mike Macdonald excited about what they were able to accomplish on the field. And I will say this, I've been to a bunch of rookie minicamps. To me, this was the smoothest one that I have ever seen. And quite frankly, I don't know that it was close. You didn't have very many miscues with all these guys on the field just trying to learn a handful of plays. They haven't played together. These are typically chaotic, and that was not the case these 2 days. I think Jaylen Milroe was a big part of that, having a leader at the quarterback position. You have some players who have worked together previously, Milroe and Ouzts being an example. There's several others. I'll talk about one of those pairings coming up here in a few minutes, but still, it was the smoothest, cleanest rookie minicamp that I have seen. And again, championships are not won on May 2nd and May 3rd. The vets are coming on the field next week. That's when you could start to really make evaluations. But it was a pretty clean rookie minicamp. As far as other things that jumped out to me on these 2 days, away from the field, last year Jaden Daniels made news when he said that he was doing virtual reality to go through progressions and help with getting off the field repetitions. And that played a role in his success as a rookie. The Seahawks, among other teams now, look to be ready to jump into the virtual reality pool. And Mike Macdonald had this to say when I asked him specifically about how they plan to use virtual reality with Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, sure. We're kind of in the exploratory mode right now on that and how that's going to come to life. So we're in the beginning stages of that, project, but that's the intent right now is to kind of go down that road and see how it can help all of our quarterbacks and even other positions too. I mean, running back protections, punt protection. I mean, there is no end in sight with the possibility. So that's exciting. But for Jaylen and the quarterback specifically, you're only going to get so many full speed reps out there. How do you change tempos? How do you do things like that where you can be creative, where you can get these really great cheap reps, and you can stack those on top of each other, so when he does get his opportunities in practice, you can make the most of them. And it seems like it's all positive all the way around.
I'm really intrigued to see how this plays out because it feels like the NFL is kind of behind a lot of the other pro sports in terms of using technology. I mean, they're just now going to have electronic first down markers, which I've wondered for years why that had not happened. So now you're starting to see NFL teams dip into the virtual reality world. And from the quarterback position, the ability to be able to see the defense through that headset and have to be able to go through your progressions, it's just as much about the mental as it is anything else. But Jaylen Milroe is not going to get a ton of reps when OTAs start because Sam Darnold is going to be learning this new offense. Drew Lock is learning this new offense. Those guys have to get their reps. So this is a way to try to bridge that gap a little bit for Jaylen Milroe. And I love that McDonald mentioned it's going to impact other positions too. As a former running back and running back coach myself, to be able to identify your blitz pickups on virtual reality. Again, it's a way to pick up reps that you aren't going to get on the field because of limited practice time. So I think that this is one of those things. There's a lot of untapped potential for NFL teams to try to maximize their reps for players, even if they have limited time on the field. They can get work done away from the field that's going to show up when they get back out for the next practice. You're going to see it at quarterback. You're going to see it at a number of different positions. On the defensive side of the football, again, as I mentioned, when you're talking about rookie minicamp, you can't aggressively play the football in coverage. You can't hit anybody. It's really hard to make adjustments or make evaluations on defensive players this time of year. With that being said, you also can kind of like with Robbie Ouzts on offense, like there's certain players you can just see like, okay, I see what the Seahawks see in terms of this player standing out. And Nick Emmanwori is the player on defense that immediately jumped out. First off, the guy was towering over everyone, and you expected that, a 6'3", 220-pound safety. He's so much taller, bigger than everybody else. You could see the fluidity movement on the field. I thought the change of direction skills were evident in their drill work. Didn't test that stuff, so there was questions about it, but I thought he moved really well. And the other thing that I really liked from Nick Emmanwori during this mini camp is that he took some instruction from Mike McDonald, then he took on the leadership role. And there were some people that questioned his ability to do that, but he started instructing the rest of his teammates, guys he had not played with before. And that was part of the reason that things were so smooth this week. It wasn't just Jalen Milroe. You had Nick Emmanwori holding that role on defense that was able to elevate everybody and make sure that they were on the same page. And so you just had a really clean mini camp from that standpoint. So I think that there's some reason to be excited about that from the perspective that Emmanwori is not going to have to come in and be one of Seattle's locker room leaders right away. They've got some really good veterans on defense to do that. But it shows that you have a young player that, like Devin Witherspoon's done the last couple seasons, could step into that role pretty quickly. And that is going to be a big plus for the Seahawks. A guy with that type of athleticism, movement skills, the ball skills that he has. And I will say in 7-on-7, there were several times Jalen Milroe wanted to go to the receiver he was up against. And Nick Emmanwori just erased those opportunities. And a couple of times Milroe just had to eat the football because there was nowhere for him to go. So there were some things you were able to see in this mini camp session that showed off that dynamic athleticism, his coverage capabilities, and you get to see the leadership. That was the thing that stood out most to me, aside from the fact that he was looking like a needle in a haystack compared to everybody else in that secondary group, with just how large this guy is and the way that he moves. It's pretty easy to tell who the high draft pick is from that group at rookie minicamp. And going to the undrafted ranks, let's talk those pairings. I mentioned this a few minutes ago that you did have some former teammates that were on the field together, and even if they were not both on the same side of the ball, I was really impressed with what I saw from both Ricky White III and Jackson Woodard, both UNLV products. They were catalysts to turning that team from being one of the worst programs in college football to finishing 11-3 last year and being a top 25 team. Ricky White III had a couple really nice grabs during this minicamp. One on Friday where the ball was a little bit high from Jalen Milroe. Not necessarily a bad throw, but it was on the higher end of the spectrum. And White was able to get his hands on it and tipped it up to himself and then reeled it in, got both feet down along the sideline. So you got to see the hand-eye coordination there on a corner route. And he had a couple other really nice catches. I don't remember the ball hitting the ground at all when it was thrown to him during this mini camp. You expect that from a drafted receiver during passing drills. And then on defense, Jackson Woodard had a pick six on Friday off a bobble from Damian Martinez, the 7th-round running back. Wasn't able to catch the pass from Milroe. It goes up in the air, and Woodard plucks it out of the air and runs it back for a touchdown. He had a pass breakup in yesterday's practice. This is a guy that had 4 interceptions for the Running Rebels last year to go with his 130-plus tackles, couple of sacks. He was a stat stuffer at UNLV, and you already get to see some of the impact out there on the smaller end of the spectrum, at least when you look at him. But he's athletic. He moves well. He's got excellent instincts in coverage. You can already tell that. So this could be a chance for not one but 2 UNLV players coming from that team that really got the program back on track. Those 2 guys have an opportunity to both make this football team for the Seattle Seahawks. And I want to tie up loose ends here. A lot of you have asked about tryout players. And at the end of the day, in these 2-day mini camps, you can't really get much of an evaluation on these tryout guys. You have to look at the drill work and see how guys hold up. With that being said, there was one player in particular, and I have a video clip that I'm going to play here that is going to kind of sum up my excitement here. As much excitement as you can have from a mini camp. But Thor Griffith, who is a nose tackle from Louisville, was there the last 2 days as a tryout player, was very productive at Louisville. So he was one of the guys that I had circled like he could play his way into a contract potentially during this 2-day mini camp. We'll see if that ends up happening. But I was really excited to see Thor roar on the field. And it felt like he was coming from Asgard with the way that he was making noises out there while he was hitting sleds. And I have an example for our listeners, and this will just give you an idea what Thor Griffith is all about. So again, it sounds like he's coming from Asgard. Thor Griffith, we'll see if the Seahawks actually sign him or not, but he was a guy that I had my eyes on quite a bit the last 2 days during drill work because you can see the power, the quickness off the snap. Those were things you can still see even in drill work. And so very productive player at Louisville, a guy I thought might get drafted. And the fact that he is a tryout player surprises me. But Griffith is the guy with the lack of depth. Seattle has a nose tackle. Maybe they make a move there to get him on the roster. I don't know if they saw enough in these 2 days to do that. But nonetheless, either way, we have a really fun clip with Thor roaring out there on the practice field at the VMAC. As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Coming up tomorrow, we'll be kicking off our draft pick coaches series. Going to have a special guest joining us to dive into one of Seattle's 11 new draft picks. Make sure that you are listening in, and thank you for tuning into this bonus episode. Go Hawks.